To understand what happens when we multiply negative numbers, let's start with some really basic times tables facts that we already know and understand, and then build a pattern to see what happens if we multiply by a negative number. Now here I've got the 4 times tables, but I've got them in descending order, starting from 3 4s and going down until I've got 0 4s. And I know the answers to these, that's quite straightforward. So it makes sense that here these numbers are going down by 1, so that the next number logically should be -1. And these numbers here are going down by 4. So it also makes sense logically that the answer to this question should be -4. Now I can continue that pattern for as long as I like, and I've just got to keep on taking off 4 each time. If you're asking yourself what is 4 lots of -2 or 4 lots of -3, you could also think of, say, -2 as a debt. Perhaps you owe someone $2. Well, if you owe 4 people $2, then you owe $8 altogether. So the idea of a negative number being a debt can be quite helpful there too. Now, if that seems a little bit counterintuitive, just remember that when negative numbers were first thought up, all of these sorts of patterns must have been a really great way to explain to everybody how it all worked. Now, another way that you can think of it, remember that when you multiply two numbers, it doesn't matter what order you multiply them in. So here we're doing, say, -1 times 4, but that's the same thing as 4 lots of -1. Now, if you think of -1 as one negative charge, then if you've got 4 of those, then you've got 4 negative charges. And if -1 is one negative charge, then 4 of them will be 4 negative charges, and it will look like this. Now, every time we multiply negatives, we don't want to have to build up a big pattern like this every time. So it's good to remember some basic home truths about how it works. And in this example here, we've learnt that when you multiply a negative number by a positive number, the solution is negative. And when you want to find the value of the number, you can just multiply, for example, here 3 times 4 to get 12, but knowing that if one of these has a negative in front of it, then the solution does too. So now to practice a couple of simple ones. If we have 3 times -7, well, 3 7s are 21, so 3 times -7 will just be -21. If we have -5 times 2, well, 5 2s are 10, so -5 times 2 will be -10. Now you'll notice here that if one of the numbers is positive and the other one is negative, the answer is negative, and it really doesn't matter which of the numbers is negative. As long as you've got one of each, you know what to do. But what happens when both the numbers are negative? Well, let's take a fact that we know over here. We know that if we've got one negative and one positive, we get a negative. So we can build up a new pattern now. So this time I've started with the times tables fact at the bottom of this pattern, and I've put it at the top because this is something that we've already verified. Now over here, I made the first number get smaller and smaller each time. This time I've decided to keep the first number the same, and effectively I've got the -3 times tables here. And instead I've made the second number get progressively smaller. Now down to here, this is something that we've already proven. We've got a negative times a positive, so we just multiply the digits together to get the actual digit in the answer, and then we reason that if one of the numbers is negative, then the solution's negative. But have a look at the pattern here in our solutions. They're actually going up by 3. So it makes sense that the next one in the pattern, which is a negative times a negative, needs to keep on going up by 3, and we get a solution of 3 here. Now you'll notice that when we have both numbers being negative, we get no negative in the answer at all. So that tells us that a negative number times a negative number gives a positive number. So practicing with this one now, if we've got, say, -5 times -6, or 5 6s are 30, both of them are negative. The negatives effectively sort of wipe each other out. And we just get a simple answer of 30.